Imagine letting the entire world decide what your money is worth. Sounds pretty wild, right? Well, that's not some thought experiment. It's exactly what's happening in Uzbekistan. Today we're diving into their huge bet on a floating currency.
So what's the deal here? Basically, Uzbekistan is letting its currency off the leash. Its value is going to be set by the global market, and that's a really fascinating move. So the big question for us today is, why? Why now, and what's the end game?
All right, let's get right to the heart of it. This quote from Uzbekistan's central bank, it really says it all. For decades, the government had this iron grip on the currency's value. They just said it. But now, they're stepping back. They're letting good old supply and demand call the shots. And that is a massive shift from direct control to basically trusting the market.
And, this isn't just some random idea they're trying out. Nope, the central bank just came out and reaffirmed this commitment. It's like they're sending up a giant flare to international investors and their own people, saying, hey, we're serious about this. We're not turning back. That makes right now a super important time to really get what their long-term plan is.
Yeah, and if you look at this timeline, you can see this has been a long time coming. It's been a really slow, deliberate journey. It all kicked off back in 2017 when they started freeing up the currency market. Then, fast forward to 2020, they adopted what's called inflation targeting, which is just a fancy way of saying their number one job became keeping prices stable for regular folks. So this latest announcement, it's really just the next chapter in this bigger story of overhauling their economy.
Okay, so we've been throwing around this term free float a lot. What on earth does that actually mean for Uzbekistan's money, the sum? Let's break it down.
So in a nutshell, a free-floating exchange rate just means the government isn't the one setting the price anymore. Simple as that. Instead, the value of the Uzbek som is going to go up, it's going to go down, all based on global supply and demand. Kind of like oil or gold. It's the market, not some government ministry, that figures out what the right price should be.
This really shows you the two different ways of thinking about it. With a free float, the exchange rate is like a thermometer, right? It just tells you the temperature of the economy. But in a fixed system, the government is trying to be the thermostat. They're trying to set the temperature themselves. And the big danger there is that you can build up all this unseen pressure. Think of it like a pressure cooker. Eventually, that thing can just blow, and you get a sudden, messy currency crisis.
But hold on, this doesn't mean the central bank is just, completely hands-off, asleep at the wheel. Their job isn't to steer the market towards a specific price, no. It's to step in and just smooth things out if there are really wild, crazy swings. Think of them like the suspension on your car. It's not steering, but it sure makes the ride a whole lot less bumpy.
Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question, why? Why do this? If a floating currency can be so volatile, why would any country choose this path? Well, it all boils down to a long-term strategy for stability and, hopefully, growth.
So here's the game plan, step by step. First, you let the currency float. That allows it to act like a giant sponge, soaking up shocks from the outside world. All that transparency and predictability then starts to build confidence. That confidence attracts businesses and international investors. And all that, if everything goes to plan, creates a stable environment for long-term growth. It's like a chain reaction, right? A domino effect, all aimed at building a tougher, more resilient economy.
So, what kind of shocks are we talking about here? Well, think about three big ones. What if global commodity prices go on a wild ride? Or what if the money sent home from Uzbeks working abroad suddenly dries up? Or what if a major trading partner hits a recession and stops buying Uzbek stuff? A floating currency can adjust on the fly, in real time, to help soften that blow for the economy back home. But, as you can probably guess, there's no such thing as a magic bullet in economics. This kind of flexibility, it comes with its own set of risks. So let's flip the coin and take a look at the trade-offs, because there are definitely trade-offs.
So let's just ask the question straight up. Is a floating currency always a good thing? We know it's a good shock absorber, but are there any downsides? The answer is a definite yes, and it's the average person who really feels it.
This really lays out the dilemma perfectly. On the one hand, you get that stability for the wider economy. Awesome. But on the other hand, any shift in the currency's value gets passed straight on to consumers. And here's where it gets real. If the som weakens against the dollar, the price of that new smartphone you've been eyeing, it goes up. The cost of the imported wheat that makes your daily bread, that goes up too. That is the real, tangible price of all this economic flexibility.
Okay, let's zoom out for a second. Why should the rest of the world even care about this policy shift in Uzbekistan? Well, because this isn't just some local issue. It actually has some pretty big international implications.
And here is a huge piece of the puzzle. When a powerhouse institution like the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, gives you its stamp of approval, that's like getting a 5-star review for your entire economy. It sends a signal to global investors everywhere that, hey, Uzbekistan is a credible place to do business, and that can unlock billions, literally billions, in foreign investment.
And so at the end of the day, we're left with this really powerful question. As Uzbekistan sails out into the kind of choppy waters of the global economy, it's making a big bet. It's betting this policy will be its anchor, keeping it stable when the seas get rough. But the real hope is that it will also act as its sail, catching the winds of global trade and pushing the country forward. So which one will it be? An anchor or a sail? Well, that's a story that's still being written. Thanks so much for joining us.